Hello everyone, wherever you are today. I hope you are doing well. Welcome from the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University. My name is Jeff Rice and I am the Executive Director of the Office of Career Management. And I'm going to share with you today how recruiters use the GMAT to assess job candidates. More importantly, I'm going to share with you how you can leverage your time most effectively now before you apply and take the GMAT and enroll in an MBA program to enhance your profile with recruiters once you've taken the GMAT and when you do enter a program like the Fisher College. I want to thank our friends at Beat the GMAT for their partnership today and bringing you this webinar, and I certainly want to thank all of you for participating. We're going to have some fun during this webinar because there's going to be some takeaways. I know how you think, what are my actions, and there'll be plenty. I'm going to give you a new perspective on your success in both applying to a top business school like Fisher and how you can further develop your skills and traits today that are most sought after by recruiters. So here we go, and enjoy the webinar. There'll be an opportunity for question and answer at the end, and you can certainly start feeding those to us throughout the presentation. I also understand this is being recorded, and in about a week you can certainly check back with Beat the GMAT, one of your favorite sites, I'm sure, and get access to their YouTube channel. So here we go. So I recently began my 22nd year leading the career management office at Fisher. And I've built a team of 16 full-time employees who provide recruiting operations to over 600 companies who recruit at Fisher. We have a career consulting and job search preparation service to 600 graduate students, including our MBA program, and over 6,000 undergraduate students. There are 58,000 students at The Ohio State University, and me and my team do not serve the entire university. We focus specifically on the Fisher College. Our recruiting portfolio consists of 80 of the Fortune 100, and over 90% of our students have been successful in securing the job of their choice within 3 months of graduation for about 15 years in a row. So we're in our 9th week of our autumn semester. The weather's beautiful, and Fisher students have already had the opportunity to network and interview over the last 2 months with over 300 companies on our campus. Every one of our first-year MBA students has attended one or more Career Foundation seminars and has worked with us to form an individual job searching plan. This has led, and this will lead to over 95% of them achieving an internship next summer. Next week, we are again partnering with GE Capital, and we're hosting our 4th annual National Middle Market Summit. Over 1,000 middle market CEOs and business leaders will assemble at Fisher, along with Jeff Immelt, the CEO of GE, Steve Case, the founder of AOL, Mitt Romney, a former presidential candidate, and Jill Raleigh, a social selling expert, and many, many more guests. The summit is going to be broadcast live on MSNBC on October 29th, beginning at 6 a.m. on the Morning Joe program. So I'd encourage you to tune in and get a firsthand look at the excitement and fun things that are happening at the Fisher College of Business. Again, that's October 29th, 6 a.m. at MSNBC. So let me tell you a little bit about my team and our office and some of the reasons why we're achieving lots of success on behalf of our students. This is our value proposition to you if you come here. There are 3 things we focus on: a highly personalized office and offering service, developing the best prepared job seekers among any MBA at any business school across the globe, and being every employer's favorite place to recruit. We break it down into 3 lines of business: our on-campus recruiting program, again, that portfolio of 600 companies conducting over 6,000 interviews annually. The reviews our employers give us on a scale, Likert scale of 1 to 10, were 9.8 this past year in terms of hitting on all 3 of these value propositions. We offer career coaching service and individual consultation to students in developing their career marketing plans and refining all aspects of their job searching acumen. One of the things that is unique and I think special and distinctive about Fisher is that we have a right-sized program, and we have invested in the career management space in order to provide every individual MBA student with their own personal career coach. We match students with these coaches by industry and functional interest. And by doing so, we're able to build relationships, personal relationships with each MBA over the entire time frame of the 2-year MBA experience. And what this affords us is the ability to go beyond with every student in building a focused and powerful internship and postgraduate employment job search plan, which really builds on their individual strengths in the career planning and job search process. Our corporate development and outreach initiative attracts new companies to Fisher almost every month. And previously I mentioned our portfolio was 80 to Fortune 100, but we go beyond that portfolio with examples of partnerships that I mentioned earlier with GE Capital, where we're hitting on a very important segment of the economy that I think many of you either already work in or are going to find interesting, and that is what we define as the middle market. It's 198,000 companies in the U.S. With annual revenues somewhere between 10 million and $1 billion. They're really driving the economy right now. So it's a combination of this breadth and depth of experience, the personal approach that we take with Fisher MBA students in our corporate partnerships, in our partnership with companies like Beat the GMAT, that we are really privileged today to offer you some perspectives on the GMAT test as one of the many integral parts of your MBA degree profile and how it will help you ultimately secure an MBA postgraduate opportunity and position, and one that is obviously then consistent with your goals. So here's how the webinar will flow. Part 1, we're going to talk about the GMAT and why it is important to both recruiters and business schools. Some of the reasons are very similar, but some of them are unique, and why it is you want to do your very best in preparing to test and do well on that with that opportunity. In Part 2, we're going to focus on, while the GMAT is an important part of the overall assessment for B-school admission, it really has a more specific application in recruiting for interns and postgraduate opportunities. So we're going to go a little deeper, and that's really the heart, I believe, of the presentation, where we're going to look specifically at skills and traits that recruiters find of highest value in recruiting MBA students. And we've created something that will be one of your primary takeaways today, and it's called the Recruiter Scorecard. Don't worry about writing it all down while you're listening. We're going to provide you a link at the end to that scorecard, and so you'll have direct access to it. We'll match that scorecard up against what the GMAT is intended to assess, where there are gaps in that scorecard that the GMAT doesn't necessarily measure, and how you can begin to improve upon those things starting now. And there'll be some specific ways that we'll make some recommendations. Finally, I'm going to conclude with a concept here that I believe is, again, a differential at Fisher amongst business schools, and that is how we view you. And we're going to be viewing you as an investor. We're going to help you before, during, and after your MBA experience as an alum to get the best return on the investment that you made in the degree here. And I'll provide a brief summary of that unique approach we take with students at the end, and then we'll receive your questions. So here we go. So why is the GMAT score important from an admissions and recruiting perspective? So let's look at it first from the input, the admissions process. And this is really areas that admission committees care about. Clearly, every school is focused on admitting students they believe will be employable, who have the academic aptitude to succeed, who present themselves professionally when visiting campus for their interviews or through their online footprint, those candidates who possess a level of work and educational experience which demonstrates teamwork and leadership. But in addition to these inputs, and to being admitted to a top business school at Fisher, the GMAT score is considered as one additional qualifier to all the above. So when all 6 of these inputs are high, it raises the business school's reputation and profile. with recruiters based on their recruitment and therefore your output into the marketplace. So at a business school such as Fisher, who admits students who are above average in these 6 areas, recruiters will begin to view us as a school that's known for the following. What does this translate into in terms of reputation and prestige? Because when you become a student at a business school like Fisher, this will be part of your brand. So we're offering programs in terms of the global recognition that those inputs bring to a class profile that engage students in global experiences. For example, at Fisher, we have a nationally recognized program called GAP, which stands for Global Applied Projects. This is offering to MBA students the opportunity to work on company-sponsored projects outside of the U.S. during the month of May, i.e. the 4-week gap between the end of the first-year curriculum and the start of a formal internship. We also offer a number of study abroad opportunities, and nearly 75% of our recruiting portfolio consists of global companies. We have been focused for a long, long time, and the trajectory is continuing to be upward in hiring and retaining quality faculty who engage students in a very rigorous curriculum in ways that push them out of their comfort zones and into a deeper learning experience. At Fisher, our faculty are internationally known and are among the world's top authorities in their fields. At any business school, and I'm assuming this will be a metric as you look at a choice, and if it's not, I would encourage it to be, that what is their alumni base? Is it a deep and experienced alumni base where your networks will add even more value to the company's future hiring goals? And that's the way a company will view it too. They invest a lot of money in the schools they choose to recruit from, not just for current students, but for the breadth and depth of their alumni base, your ultimate network upon graduation. By the way, check out the network tab on LinkedIn if you've not done that on your profile. You can select any school, select Fisher College of Business, and when you do that, you'll see over 28,000 Fisher alumni have an active profile on LinkedIn. It's a built-in network immediately. So in short, the class profile, including above-average GMAT scores, leads to selective admissions, which leads to high-quality students, which in turn draws recruiters. And that's why Fisher is one of the very few target recruiting schools for companies, and included in that profile is above-average GMAT scores. So among the companies that recruit at Fisher, I would imagine you will find interest in one or more of these industries. So among these, let's take a little more of a qualitative look at how and why your GMAT test score will be viewed at the initial point of selection for an interview. And I emphasize that. That is the screening time in which companies are selecting among dozens of students the 15 to 20 that they want to interview when they visit campus. So in consulting, an industry that's popular and understandably why, in terms of the compensation, in terms of the variety, in terms of the opportunities that spring from a consulting experience into the next career. Clearly in the consulting world you have to think about work-life balance and many other factors. But one factor that's important to the consulting industry in their interview selection of candidates is something that they would call intellectual capital. This is a very reason why case interviews are a critical component in the overall interviewing process for consulting firms. They lean very heavily on a student's ability to formulate a logical and innovative approach to a business problem. Thus, it's testing their ability to think and communicate strategically and intellectually on their feet. The intellectual capital that's necessary to do this is often a predictor for consulting firms through a high GMAT score. So that's why that's almost always looked at and considered as one aspect of deciding which candidates will be interviewed in that first round of the process. So while intellectual capital in the recruiting process for other industries is a factor, there are other factors which are equally important and in some cases more important. So where you see the X of frequently in the industries of financial services, petroleum and energy, real estate, consumer goods, you'll find in those areas, while, again, intelligence, intellectual capital is important, the GMAT score will become less important to them as a vetting tool. They're going to be more focused on strong quantitative skills, strong marketing and data analytics skills as examples. In other industries that place a heavier emphasis on people management and communication skills, and again, a little less on the GMAT score, these would include technology, where creativity and innovation is probably going to bubble up as the primary trait and attributes and skills they're looking for. In the pharma healthcare space, again, it's more what are your quantitative and qualitative skills. In manufacturing, you might guess it's going to be mostly around your process skills. In media and entertainment, again, you might guess, but it's really going to be focused on parts of your background where it shows innovation, and in this day and age, social media skills. And in the nonprofit sector, probably a higher emphasis on project management skills. So in short, as you look at this entire matrix, one of the takeaways I'd like you to have is that intellectual capital as a predictor from a GMAT score is viewed differently in its importance across industries. But in all cases, is only a tool as an initial view of a candidate's profile. So this is an important step in the sequence of this presentation, because I want to now look at this recruiter scorecard of desired skills and traits and go much deeper into each of them to help you better understand that while a high GMAT score is important, it's not going to be the final predictor of your employability once you enter an MBA program. And things, again, you can begin doing now to enhance on these traits. So beyond the initial screen of intellect, and when you've had the opportunity to present a more full profile to a prospective employer, which you will have the chance to do at Fisher, what are the other skills and traits that recruiters value? In other words, what is their scorecard? So arguably, one of the best sources in assembling this scorecard is an annual survey of recruiters that's conducted by the Graduate Management Admissions Council, or GMAT. And in their most recent survey of this year, they achieved responses from over 500 recruiters who recruit at the top business schools. And each respondent within this survey, which was longer than just this question, but in this particular area, they were asked to check the 5 most desired traits and skills that they want to see in an MBA. And here's what they said. Strategic skills, communication skills, core business knowledge, proven ability to perform, ability to manage change. On the trait side, initiative, professionalism, integrity, motivation, and leadership. At the end of this presentation, we're going to provide you with a link to this recruiter scorecard in a table format that will include with it a more qualitative description of the meaning behind this, all of these skills and traits, and that will be informative as well. But for now, let's just kind of reflect on the GMAT score from the recruiter perspective. Like me, I'm going to guess you're asking a question right away, and that is, how does a GMAT score measure my integrity? Or what questions on the GMAT test will measure my professionalism? Well, the answer is none of them. Remember our previous slide around industries and which ones were higher in the scale of what the GMAT test does intend to measure, which is verbal skills, mathematical integrated reasoning skills, along with analytical writing skills and quantitative areas. Where are these most represented on the recruiter scorecard? Primarily in these 3 areas: strategic skills, communication skills, proven ability to perform. So in other words, only 30% of the skills and traits most desired by recruiters are most directly aligned to the GMAT score. To me, this is clear evidence that the GMAT is important, but almost exclusively as a screening measure for interview selection. It is in the balance of the recruiter scorecard where you can begin to influence your MBA job searching profile now, moving forward, and while in MBA program. So what I want to do is I want to take a quick look at each of these 10 skills and traits that were identified by MBA recruiters as most desirable, and consider ways you can begin to strengthen them now, and in ways that will continue to strengthen your knowledge and experience to actually score very well then on the GMAT test. So let's talk about strategic skills. Now don't forget the GMAT score, as I said earlier, is an indicator of the skills. So getting involved with projects now that have a strategic component to it will help you on the test. At the end of the day, you know, strategy involves critical thinking skills, and these are measured in portions of the GMAT test. Some examples of strategy projects that perhaps you've already done, but you could also start thinking about getting involved with, depending on certainly where you work. New product development, an opportunity to develop more efficient processes at your company to enhance its profitability. Looking for opportunities where you might get engaged with assessing new market opportunities across the U.S. or the globe, depending on your business. Volunteering to do a competitive analysis, or don't even ask and just go do it and present it to somebody in terms of, here's where I see an opportunity for us based on the competition. Anything that involves cost reduction initiatives or engages you in more of a deeper dive into business analytics. So seek projects and involve that strategic thinking. It will help you on the test as you prepare, but it will also make you a more formidable candidate out of the gate when you enter an MBA program. Talk a little bit about communication skills. We're having a little bit of a technical problem, but we'll get it fixed. There we go. So in the communication skills area, when a team asks you, you know, could you help us deliver the results during a presentation that we've built and we're going to give, raise your hand. When a boss asks you to join her or him at a presentation that he or she will be given to a group, volunteer to deliver part of the presentation. When the minister at your church asks you to give a reading, say yes. If you're asked to give a toast at a friend's wedding, say yes. In short, it's like riding a bicycle. The more you ride it, the more you're going to ride straight, the more you're going to ride fast. Every opportunity that you have to enhance and deliver verbal communication skills, take it. Let's talk a little bit about core business knowledge, the third trait, and this one also is one that is often measured on the GMAT. You know, what I typically advise students is that to differentiate yourself, every MBA candidate being interviewed by a company is going to go through what I call the path of least resistance to preparation, which is they're going to read content about a company on the website. You need to begin thinking as an MBA student and as a pre-MBA applicant, if the MBA is your desire, about becoming a mini economist. Take 5 companies that you aspire to potentially work for in the future and really take a deep dive into those 5 companies in terms of their business model, in terms of their sales performance, in terms of their board of directors and its makeup, getting inside their culture through websites like Glassdoor, understanding more and more about not just that company, but the industry in which they're in. That is what's going to differentiate you as a candidate. I tell the story that there was a recruiter here a couple of years ago from McKinsey who does recruit frequently on our campus, and he was a partner out of the Cleveland office. I had him interview, we had prepared for him to interview 6 of our students, and at the end of that day I asked him for a debrief, and he said they were all great, but I'm only going to hire 1. And I said, tell me about the one you're going to hire. And he said, well, he nailed the case, but the other 5 did the same. He answered every behavioral question in the right framework, but the other 5 did the same. But I had to ask myself, which one of these candidates, because I only have the ability to hire 1 right now, would I feel most comfortable with leaving in the room for 10 minutes with the CEO of Procter & Gamble, who's currently my client. And he was the only one I felt comfortable in doing that. I asked him, why? Because he talked about that company, that industry during his case as if he knew more about them than the CEO did. And that's kind of the level that we're going to try to get you to when you think about core business knowledge. Read the Wall Street Journal, read Business Week, read Forbes, read Fortune magazine, but those are table stakes. Think about Fast Company, Financial Times for a more global perspective, blogs, and while I have begun to observe it's a little bit of a lost art, for goodness sake, read a book. I'm currently reading Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and I'm learning a great deal about the valuable role of women in leadership roles and the challenges that are faced by women to establish trust and influence. And clearly I'm learning a lot about Facebook. But this book has taken on new relevance to me as we recently became sponsors and partners with the Forte Foundation and just announced our first and annual Forte Fellows with 10 bright and accomplished women here at Fisher. Find a book that has meaning to you and that has relevance. Moving on to the last two skill areas, and then we'll move quickly into the traits. Let's talk about proven ability to perform and the ability to manage change. Begin building examples now that will help you with your interviews before and when you're in the MBA program. And I think many of you are familiar with the popular framework that's used to describe your performance during an interview or performance review, and it's what we call the STAR framework. It stands for situation, task, action, result. This is pretty common framework around most business schools and their career management offices. But at Fisher, we take an additional step, and we call it START. So again, it's situation, task, action, result, but for us, it's all about the takeaway. We work with each individual student to help them utilize this framework around every bullet on their resume. Interviewing, at the end of the day, is storytelling, but the stories have to be concise, and they have to crescendo to results that are relevant to the company with whom you're interviewing. Interviewers by nature have short attention spans, and it has nothing to do with a disinterest in you, but they're tired. They're going through days of 30-minute interviews back to back. They're thinking about what they need to do at their business, the email they have to answer, and so you have to capture their attention in a way that crescendos to the end with value that you will bring to them, because studies will show that's when recruiters are most listening, when your story is over. And we've learned this. So what we coach is takeaway. The highest level of interviewing is capturing the story you just told, which may or may not have been heard fully, and identify 2 or 3 tangible competencies that you can drive home in this takeaway portion. So let me give you an example. If the question was, give me an example of a time in which you were given a project that had very little direction and how you managed the ambiguity. I'm going to guess that sounds familiar. You may actually be on one of those projects now at your workplace. Of course, you would utilize the STAR framework to describe the situation, the task that was given to you, the specific actions you took to focus the work, and the end result that you ultimately achieved. What we're going to coach you on is how to sum up those statements to get to the heart of the question and your abilities. For example, you might say in the takeaway, it was through this project that I demonstrated my abilities to, 1, seek clarity on expectations for the project, 2, assemble the best resources and people, 3, create a project timeline that was clear to everybody on the team and what we were going to achieve. And then the crescendo, again, could be I actually thrive on ambiguity, because to me that provides an opportunity to not only meet the expectations, but to exceed them. That's what I call interviewing 800. And that's what I encourage you to start thinking about with the work that you're doing now, the work you'll do in the near future, how you're going to build these stories around what is the takeaway and the value that will bring to a future employer. At Fisher, we rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse with our students, and I think the results are clear. This past year, 100% of recruiters who visited Fisher indicated our MBA students drove their responses to clear results and takeaways, and 92% of those students earned jobs. So build those frameworks now. All right, let's move over to the right side, and these are more trait-oriented, and let's start talking about them and some examples. So in the area of initiative, document your specific work contributions. One of the things I've done for the last 20 years of my career is I sit down at the end of every week, I think about the meetings I had, the people I met, the projects I was engaged with, the actions that I took, and I start writing down real specific short sentences of what was the skill I used, the competency I used. What that's really helped me with is to build a professional profile of myself where I can look at where am I deep in one area, where are there some gaps that I need to revisit, where are there new opportunities to develop skills. Initiative is demonstrated more clearly in that action portion of the START framework, the A that's underlined. And this is really a clear delineation of what I call the virtue spectrum between humbleness and arrogance. If you lead every one of your interviewing stories with, I feel I can do this, then you're being too humble. If you lead every interview response with, I know I can do this, you're probably being a little too arrogant. Where we're going to want you to be and where we're going to coach you to be is in between, and that's an area that we call self-confidence. Statements that lead with, I believe, or I'm confident that I can do this. And that's where the initiative part in your actions come to play, because you're using the first pronoun, but you're using it in a self-confident way, which resonates with the interviewer. Now, granted, it's a team-oriented world, but after you've established a collaborative approach in your story through the situation and task, it's time to turn to the I statements and what you did in the action portion to drive home the initiative. And there's plenty of examples that I can give you. But let me give you one, and this relates to if the question were really around a project or an assignment, and again, you describe the situation and the task. In the action area, it might be, I recommended we look at the sales data by quarter for 3 of our major competitors over a 3-year period. And then I also recommended we assemble that into a matrix by regions in the U.S. to help determine if there were issues of losing sight of our market penetration. And it revealed that we were in several locations. So here's how we move forward to achieve a result. I think you got what I mean here in terms of documenting your work accomplishments now. It's going to help you build your resume in the future. It's going to help you identify where your gaps are, because initiative that you took and owned in the work that you do will become a critical part of your profile and story to a recruiter as an MBA student. So let's talk now about professionalism. You know, the best advice I can offer you today and in today's recruiting landscape is to monitor, if not shut down and start over with your digital footprint. Don't assume recruiters aren't looking. They are. In a recent LinkedIn survey, it indicated 80% of recruiters said that they check students' LinkedIn profiles as part of their assessment process. They're also beginning to look at Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and blogs. You don't get a second chance to make a good first impression, pardon the cliche, but it's never more true in this space. So if necessary, take a proactive approach now with your digital presence and establish a professional brand or further your professional brand that already exists. That's the best advice I can give you, and it's the most tangible thing that's being viewed right now in the area of professionalism. 3 more to go, so let's talk about integrity. This is really where companies are focusing questions around examples of where you helped mitigate an ethical dilemma. So again, focus on documenting those times where you helped individuals or teams avoid or mitigate conflict and did the right thing, which led to a positive result. Recruiters are enamored with stories in which you held fast to your values and led an initiative which was based upon factual data, which focused on results and actions and decisions that enhanced the company's mission of high moral standard. As a close friend of the Fisher College, Warren Buffett, said to me last year in a famous quote of his, Jeff, when you're looking to hire people, you look for 3 qualities. You look for energy, intelligence, and integrity. And if they don't have the last one, the first 2 are going to kill you. So integrity has become an important trait, and start, again, thinking about those scenarios, and you have them in your work experience where you did the right thing and why. Motivation. Finish strong in your work before you matriculate to an MBA program. Don't be on cruise control. That last 6 to 12 months of your professional and personal life prior to B school are critical. Recruiters look most closely at the top 1/3 of your resume, and that's where behavioral interviewing is based upon. It's a model of recency. It's a model of motivation. It's a model of momentum. So at Fisher, we have a pre-MBA career core program that will get you ready about 3 months before you matriculate, where we're going to virtually help you with getting your resume in shape, design cover letter templates, take a look at your marketing plans, look at your skills and traits analysis to help you get to that recruiter scorecard with an A or a B before you arrive. We're not going to let you be on cruise control, but don't let yourself be on cruise control. That's motivation. And finally, let's take a look at leadership. You know, leadership is more than managing people or a project. It's more than finishing a project where expectations were exceeded. Again, these have become kind of table stakes for applicants to top business schools. Those things are evident in most of their backgrounds and profiles. Leadership to me is about taking a creative and innovative idea and asking for support of your manager at the company you're at to explore a business case or cost-benefit analysis for potentially implementing that innovative idea. Obviously, you want to build that business case around profitability. I know you have these ideas. I know that you can take the risk and explore them. But when you do that and you show the initiative in creative and innovative ways, you've helped a company enhance its profitability either financially or through a brand equity. It's going to be noticed, and companies will see that as an attribute of your leadership. So clearly, all of these skills and traits that will be enhanced through an MBA education at schools like Fisher are here on this scorecard. I show it this way now as a way for you to begin grading yourself on each of these dimensions right now. Use any grading system you want, A through F, 1 through 10, 1 through 5 stars. You come up with your own system. But equally important, get feedback from others that I call are in your inner circle, people that know you well, personally and professionally. Ask them to grade you on these skills as well. Objectivity is critical, and it's important to get that feedback. So as you begin to strengthen these traits and skills now, depending on where you are, and if, for example, you decide on a letter grade evaluation, I can tell you factually from my experience, MBAs who enter a B school with grades in the A to B range in all of these skills and traits are going to have a definitive competitive advantage over the entire pool of MBAs across the nation and the world. You're also going to be able to see very visually where I need to focus my attention in terms of areas that were scored lower. And if you focus again on those top 3, those are ones that come out a little bit more specifically in the GMAT test, and the bottom 7, not so much. This will be available with a link we'll provide here in a slide or two. So let me just finish up with this. It's really been enjoyable talking with you and looking forward to the interaction and the questions, but this isn't something that I've mentioned in the table of contents that I wanted to just talk about for a minute. You know, at Fisher, we're focused on the return on investment. And actually, our return on investment has been rated pretty highly by most of the ranking organizations. But you're going to see us view you as an investor. And so why the $200,000 number? You understand it. That's not tuition at Ohio State and Fisher. That's only a portion of it. But it also includes the lost opportunity and the opportunity cost of being unemployed for 2 years while you're a student. But just believe me, it's close to $250,000. Well, if I handed you $250,000, what would you do with it? I can almost guarantee that whatever answer you gave me, you would probably act on that twice a day in order to get a return. And that's what we view the job search as, and that's helping you act on that investment. A solid return on any investment is going to require multiple actions, and we're going to be your portfolio managers. What does a portfolio manager do? A portfolio manager guides you and collaborates with you and often acts with you on what those 2 things a day are going to be for 20 months of an MBA program to get a return. So who's my customer? Procter & Gamble, McKinsey, Ford Motor Company, the Gallup Organization, Goldman Sachs. Those are my customers. Who's my product? It's the Fisher College of Business and the Ohio State University. Who's my investor? It's the MBA student. So as an investor, we're going to go through those 10 most sought after skills and traits. We're going to find out how to invest in each one of those on a daily basis in order for you to get a return. I've really enjoyed this. Again, the copy of our recruiting scorecard is at the link on the screen. And I think we're ready to take some questions. So first question that we have is, who provides GMAT scores to employers? It's a fair question. So what we actually encourage, well, let me answer the question directly. You do. It's not provided by any outside organization. The Fisher College of Business is not handing out GMAT scores to its recruiting companies. You're the one providing it. So what we're going to work with you on is, at Fisher, it's above average. We think every student should have their GMAT score in their resume, so there's no question about what it is. But clearly, the one industry where you saw it is almost always used is in consulting. And consulting tends to kind of edge around the 700 plus GMAT as one initial screen. Now, I can give you plenty of examples of less than 600 GMAT scores all the way down to high 500s where our students have gotten into a consulting firm. So that's where it's important to understand those other traits, those other factors. Second question, what is more important, quality of work or quantity of work? These two questions are impressing me. We've got an impressive audience. That's a great question. Here's the easy answer, both. Now, let me talk about both. It really is the quality. When you take a look at the average years of work experience in most top programs, it's somewhere between 3 and 5, so 4. But, employers have become to learn that it's less about time and it's more about value. So if you've got less than that on average, what was the quality of that work experience? How do we define quality? Well, we just showed you. It's in that recruiter scorecard. If over 1 year of work experience, you showed initiative, you showed drive and motivation in terms of a team project, that you did something that that demonstrated your integrity, those are the qualitative areas that a company is going to hone in now. Now, I'm going to extend this question a little further. Can there be a difference in compensation based on years of experience? Yes, but it's not going to be that dramatic. It may be dramatic to you in terms of the initial net present value, but I've often said to our MBA students, the degree is not about net present value. The net present value you saw on the slide before, it's $200,000. There are very few MBAs graduating this year who are going to be making $200,000 as a base salary anywhere. So it's all about what is the return on that. And so there can be a difference in the comp, but in the end, everybody will get to the same place if they perform well 3 or 5 years post-MBA. Here's a question. Is it advisable to retake the GMAT if you scored less than 600 and you've already been accepted to a business school? Again, I think it really depends, and I'm not going to try to dodge this, but it is a situational thing. What is the industry? What is the function you want to go into? I mean, if you want to go into consulting, my advice would be, yeah, I would probably take it again. If you're interested in nonprofit work or you're interested in a technology company where the GMAT score is something that is rarely viewed as a screening device, we'll have a conversation, but I would say if you don't want to go through that, I don't think you have to. So again, it's very situational, which is really why I put in front of you earlier in the slides, where it's almost always used, which is one industry, where it is frequently used or commonly used, and where it's not used at all. Is digital footprint important in the admission process? Well, it is, and you know what? Sitting with me is the Director of Recruiting at Fisher, Alita Smith, and I'm going to give it to her because she will tell you directly why.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. The digital footprint is important in the admission process. You'll remember early on in the presentation, Jeff talked about the things that admissions committees are screening for, and one of those was professional presence. So you better believe that savvy admissions committees and those at the top schools certainly are going to look beyond your provided documentation to assess your professional presence, and that extends to websites, blogs, and social media.
Next question, do recruiters analyze GMAT score evolution when evaluating an applicant? For example, some take the test multiple times. Well, I'll answer whether a recruiter would be interested in that, but let me go back to Alita. And when students submit their GMAT scores, where are they held? At GMAT?
Yes, and then the schools receive a copy of those scores, and it does include the evolution. The formal score report includes any previous test attempts.
Okay, so now I think I'm getting underneath the question. I wish we could interact. And if I'm not, then get online and ask it a different way. But I guess maybe now I'm thinking, if you were to say that I took it again and got a 680 when previously I had a 640, would they analyze that evolution as something that would be good or bad? Well, the answer would be it would be good. I think, like everything, though, it's a matter of how you present that, for example, to an employer in an interview. You know, for example, you might want to use words of, I was highly motivated to interview with your company, and I understood that one of the potential barriers might be my GMAT score. Well, 640 to me, I'm very proud of. I took it again to get a 670 in order to impress upon you further my capabilities in analytics, going deeper with core business, which is, again, why I wanted you to see where are those areas. Now, if those things aren't important to a company, and I'm repeating myself now, there was probably no need for you to take the test. But the evolution will be something you have to decide whether you want to communicate, and that's something that we'll advise you on if that scenario occurs. All right, I'm an MBA applicant from India. Can you specifically tell us how the job market is for international candidates? What extra pointers do you have for students from India or other international students? So we take a pretty unique approach to all students, but I think it's even more unique and differential for international students at Fisher. And here's what we'll do. When the question is asked, will this company sponsor my F1 student visa for an H-1B upon the first year of my employment and beyond optional practical training for an additional 5 years? Will they do that? And the answer I always give is, I don't know. The second question, though, that's more important is, can they do it? And the answer to that is every company except a company who works for the U.S. government can do it. And so let's start from the glass is half full versus the glass is half empty. We're going to move then to, and again, this is all around individualized marketing plans. We're going to move then to what are your target industries? What are your target companies? What are your current skills and what are you working on and developing? We'll come up with a target list of companies. Now, are there companies that are more amenable to a sponsorship for a non-permanent resident? Absolutely. Consulting firms and technology firms and investment banks are high on the list. But even they are victim to a U.S. quota of roughly 85,000 sponsorship H-1 visas annually in April. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at where are those cores, where are those targets, and then we'll help you identify beyond the path of least resistance, which you'll often get from a professional recruiter, which is we do not hire international students. Let's identify divisional managers, hiring managers inside that company, and use our LinkedIn alumni database, find individuals who you can connect with who might find a different path for you. Now, alongside of that, we're going to create a parallel strategy in which we're going to be looking at opportunities with companies who have significant presence in your home country. And that's not to indicate that that is exactly the focus in terms of where you'll work geographically, but that's your differentiation. As an international student from India, you know that culture better than a U.S. candidate. And so where are there opportunities with companies, and there are hundreds of them doing business in India, where you might add value. So long story short, specifically the job market for non-permanent residents in U.S. MBA programs, you know, you've read the data. It's not favorable, but at Fisher it is, and we had 100% of our international students secure employment 2 years ago, 95% this year. Last question. What do I do if I don't have a lot of experience in the field I want to go into? Well, number one, you're not alone. I'd say probably, Alita might give you more specific data, but just my observation, at least at Fisher, 80% of the students coming into Fisher are transitioning from something that they were doing before to something totally different moving forward. And I think that's admirable. It's courageous, but I think it's leveraging a passion for what they really want to do. So in many respects, whether you have 1 year of pre-MBA work experience or 8 years of pre-MBA experience, I'm not suggesting that's an apple-to-apple comparison, but I'll put it in the context of everybody is lacking in something. And that something is what will help you identify in terms of knowledge. So the way I'd like you to think about it is in kind of a T-square. You know, the vertical of the T-square is where do you have depth in terms of an industry, in terms of work experience. And in this question, it might be a little less than somebody else. But across that, the horizontal of the T-square is skills, traits, competencies. What do you have today? For example, you might have good accounting skills, good financial analysis skills. You know how to build a financial model. You've built cost-benefit analysis. So why do you come to an MBA program? It's to broaden that horizontal, that breadth, and learn about value process mapping, you know, through classes and through an internship, to learn to be a stronger leader through managing projects, which you'll have the chance to do at Fisher. So as you broaden that, suddenly that becomes more important than the depth. And so we'll develop those T-squares with you. If you've got a little work experience, we'll begin to hone in on, you know, where it is you build that breadth versus the depth, and that will be your selling proposition to a future company. So that was enjoyable, and thanks for the questions. These are great questions. They were so great. I hope every one of you looks at Fisher as a place to apply. I wish you well in the process. Good luck on the GMAT, and let us know if we can help you in any other way. Have a great day.